Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. The setup has changed a little bit, and if you see me looking there, it's because my monitor, actually it's just my computer. My computer is there, and as I said, I'm changing the setup. I got a new microphone, which I'm really excited about. We'll see how it goes today with it. I just wanted to hop in real quick to talk about some of the books that I've read these past 6 months. We've already been through half of the year, and even though it's been a crazy year, I have been able to read a couple of books. Even though I am a reader and I love reading, I think I've said this before, it takes me a while to get into that reading comfort, and sometimes I struggle with just staying focused on reading, and I hope one day I'll get to be as cool as some people that I know that read 50, 60 books per year, or even more, or even 50, 60 books in a month. I don't know how they do it, but I've seen some YouTube videos of people who do that, and I just find it super crazy. But I want to give you a more realistic view on this. I have read a total of 18 books so far. I'm not going to talk about them all because some of them are just really bad. So I just want to focus today on the books that I have really loved. And for that, I'll need my iPad because I started a digital book journal. So basically over here, I am writing all of the books that I've read, and I'm giving them ratings and writing down thoughts immediately after I finish it. So it gives it a more legit feeling of a review. So I have it on my iPad. I just downloaded a editable PDF version that I found on Google. There are some beautiful ones on Etsy that you can find that are absolutely beautiful, but they cost money. So on this reading journal, I'm not going to go through everything, but we have a reading tracker. We have the reading stats, so whether it was digital, physical, audiobook, how many pages, that kind of stuff. And then I have here this little challenge, and it's 23 in 2023. So the idea is that I read 23 books in 2023. So far, so good. So yeah. And then I have my TBR shelf, which has a lot. And from my TBR shelf, I have read 6, and there's one that's in course. Although I don't know if I'm going to finish it. And then this is my favorite part, and it's a little drawing. And so you just color in with the books that you've been reading, and the idea is that you fill out the shelf. I think it's very pretty, and these are the colors, the main colors on the book covers. And then you just move on to the reviews. So I'm gonna start in the order that I've read them, and the first book that I really want to talk about is The Seal Woman's Gift by Sally Magnuson. This is a beautiful book. So as you know from a couple of videos ago, when I went to Europe, I bought a couple of books. This was one of those. This is a story about a lady from Iceland in the 1600s whose island gets raided by pirates, and she's taken to northern Africa as a slave. And so it's really interesting to see the combination of cultures and how she needs to be strong for her children who she's separated from, and from her husband who is a pastor, if I'm not mistaken. And it just shows how your culture, your beliefs, and the core family values are what's gonna keep you strong in moments of distress and when you don't know if you should keep on living. It's a beautiful story. So my rating, I don't really have a system to it. I know that if I didn't like it, I'm just going to give it 1 star. And if I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like that good. I'll give it like 3 stars. And then if I really liked it, it's 4.5 stars. And then if it's like just amazing, mind-blowing, favorite read, favorite book, that kind of stuff, then I would give it 5 stars. So I gave it 4 stars because it took me a while to get started. And I know that I've said this many times that it takes me a while to start reading books. But this time it really took me long because the story takes time to develop. I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit gloomy and depressive at times. And of course, this lady is going through a lot of like really bad stuff. So obviously it's not going to be all happy and lovely and nice. However, her story is beautiful, is very powerful. And I love that the author took like historical records and some of that story, which is mostly focused on the men, and took all those amazing women and gave them a story. And that I think is unbelievable. You're gonna see a pattern in the books that I've read, or like my favorite books so far that I've read this year, that there's a lot of like female empowerment and strong women fighting for what they want and what it's good for them and fighting for their rights. And even though this is fiction, like this is historical fiction, the way that Sally, the author, wrote it, it really seemed like you were reading a nonfiction book, like as if that story was like 100% true. And that is what I think is captivating about historical fiction. That's like the way that they can captivate you with the storytelling. That's what I really like about it. Moving on to the second and third book that I think they're going to be in my top 5 or 10, I don't know, we'll see, favorite books of the entire year. This one probably is also like in my favorite books of all time, is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I told you guys when I did the book haul that like this cover was everything to me, and it did not fail to amaze me. It was so good. I read it in like a day, and it was fast-paced. It was really nice. The main character, although a little bit annoying, I really liked her. The Prince of Hearts, Chef's Kiss. The second book, The Ballad of Never After, which I don't have in its physical state, but I did have the digital version, was amazing as well. So basically, I finished the first book at 10 p.m. and then I just couldn't help it. I needed to start the second one because the cliffhanger was just so good. So I just kept reading, and I read it I finished it in the morning or something like that afterwards. And now I have to wait until September. Ooh, but September is right in the corner. Oh yes! I have to wait until September for the third book to come out, and I'm so excited. But I really, really liked it. And to me, actually, the second book was better than the first book. Just because in the first one, there's this slow-paced everything. You're trying to put all the puzzle pieces together. You're trying to figure out why she did the things she did. And how the Prince of Hearts, is going to either help her or hinder her. But, it's a will they, won't they? And then it moves on. So it's a little bit strange, but I really love it. Yeah, so this basically follows Evangeline Fox. She is a girl in this kingdom somewhere, I don't know where. And due to a series of unfortunate events, she has to strike up a deal with the Prince of Hearts. And the Prince of Hearts tells her, sure, I'll help you as long as you get to give 3 kisses to whoever I think, whoever I say, whenever I say so. And she was like, yeah, sure, what's there to lose? There was a lot to lose, and a lot of things happen, and it goes crazy. So yeah, these 2 books definitely in my top favorite books of the year so far. So for both books, Once Upon a Broken Heart and The Ballad of Never After, I gave both of them 5 stars. Like, I think that's a given. Next is another book that I don't have it in physical form, but I have it in digital form, and I'm just waiting to see if they're gonna get like a paperback version that fits with my other books of the same author. And obviously I'm talking about Happy Place by Emily Henry. Duh. So I know that Emily Henry is always going to be like one of those safe authors that I know I'll always like their stories. And I really liked this one. I thought of this book as like a mixture between Conversations with Friends and Beach Read. Wrong book, wrong author. I was talking about people we meet on vacation, not Conversation with Friends. I'm so sorry, Emily, if you ever watch this. And I'm sorry to my friends and family for the mistake that I made. I will think about this for the rest of my life. And I don't say that in a bad way. Like, actually, it was actually like really good, and the execution was great, and I loved all of the characters. My favorite character that from like the group of friends from this book is Cleo. I just loved her so much, loved her energy, loved just her. I don't know what else to explain. And so I was reading this book with one of my best friends who's like Emily Henry's like #1 fan. And we were talking about who would we fan cast, right? Like when you start reading a novel and you start like taking a look at the descriptions of each of the characters, you're always gonna think of someone in your mind, and that someone is almost always going to be like either an actor or a singer or, you know, like a famous person. And to me, Win is literally Joe Alwyn. And I know that a lot of people like don't like him right now because of the whole Taylor Swift situation, and I'm not going to get into that because like whatever. But I could not stop thinking of Joe Alwyn whenever Win was like on the pages. Like, to me, he looks exactly like what I picture Win in my head. My friend agrees. So, and I also looked at like the internet to see if people like agreed, and I went onto Emily Henry's Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, and I found that a lot of people think the same thing. So that's great. I think that we're all on the same page. So please, movie or TV producers, if and when you are going to create a TV or movie version of Happy Place, if you don't cast Joe Alwyn, we're going to be very upset. And finally, I gave this 4 stars. 5 stars are only given to books that I feel passionate about, okay? And I really liked this book. That's why I give it 4.5 stars, I guess. But in most of the rating systems, you don't really have like 0.5 or stuff like that. I think the reason why I didn't give it 5 stars and why it's not one of my favorite Emily Henry books, it's because of the miscommunication trope and the I need to act tough, or I don't want to tell the other person how I'm feeling because what if they don't feel the same way? I don't want, like, just stop. So like every time that Harriet and Win just didn't get their together, it upset me so much. I don't know why. I just didn't like it. Like, you clearly have feelings for each other. Just say it, you know, like, oh, but I'm like so scared of like risking blah, 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 blah. Shut the up. Like, nobody cares. Just get your together, sort it out. Like, you're literally like hooking up. So that enraged me a little bit. All right, the next book that I want to talk about is Electra by Jennifer Saint. This was a great read. Beautiful. So this follows the stories of 3 women from the Greek mythologies, which are Electra, Clytemnestra, and Cassandra. And it all has to do with the Trojan War. And it's a beautiful story. There's 3 different points of view. So each of the female, or like the lead female characters, get to tell their own story and how it all, in the end, gets all like mixed together, which I really enjoy when all of that happens. So I thought it was really interesting. However, I do have a couple of things to say. Jennifer Saint uses the word respite so many times in this book. I lost count of how many times I read that word, but it was, I don't know, it made such an impression on me that that's the first thing that I wrote in my review. Literally. She uses the word respite way too often. Coming back to the multiple points of views, it was cool. There were some moments where it was a little bit too much, especially when the chapters were like super short, so you had to jump in from one story to the next one like right away, and you were still trying to process everything that was going on. And as with like mythology or like stories that have multiple characters, it's difficult to follow and to remember all of the names. It gets a little bit difficult, but you start getting a hang of it. And then you're like, oh, right. So yeah, those are sort of like the main two reasons why this is not even like a 4.5 star book. It's just like a 4, but barely there a 4. Like, I still enjoyed it. I love strong female characters. And I love getting to know a little bit of like where all of these stories come from and things that we talk about all of the time. Me having studied psychology and having studied the Electra complex, I really wanted to understand, and I really got to understand the Electra complex. So it was really fun. It was really cool. It was interesting that it wasn't centered on Helen of Troy, but the other women that suffered through it. So it was really cool. It was really, really cool to be able to get, you know, the perspective of the Trojan War from other people. The last book that I'm going to talk about today, I actually finished it yesterday, and it inspired me to do this video, is The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. Yeah. These 3 are some of the ones that I got in my recent Europe trip. And I am so proud of myself for getting really good books. And if you remember from the video from the Europe book haul, this is set in Norway, right? Also in the 1700s. And I don't want to compare because I feel like they're 2 very different stories, but they are set within the same time frame and like in a very, very close geographical area. So I'm not gonna compare. I just wanted to tell you that it's interesting that I just like this kind of stuff. But I really do like historical fiction. And this is also continuing like that same female empowerment stories. So basically, this follows a group of women in an island on the most northern part of Norway. So basically, it's like where Norway, Sweden, and Finland meet. It's a part called Finnmark. And there's this shipwreck and storm, and most of the men of the village die in that tragedy. And so it's up to the women to move on and continue on living and starting to do tasks that were meant for men. But there's also the issue that we are in a very religious era where witchcraft and witch trials are like the thing, right? So there's this guy who comes from Scotland, where King James is from, and if you don't know a lot about that, King James was the one who kickstarted the witch trials around the world, right? So it started in England, and then it spread through Europe, and then it went to Spain and with the Holy Inquisition, and then in the States and the whole thing that happened in New England, you know. It was tough. It was hard. And so in this part of Norway, there is a group of native people called the Sami. And these very Protestant, you know, like Bible lover, believers, whatever, believe that the Sami are witches because of symbols that they use and stuff, which are runes. And we obviously know nowadays that runes were just like their alphabet, you know, how they wrote stuff. But they all saw it as witchcraft, and some of the rituals that they did, they're like, no, that is like summoning the devil, and they're communing with the devil and all of that kind of stuff. And so a lot of stuff starts happening in Vardo, which is the place where this story is set. But it's a beautiful story. It's just filled with so many powerful and strong women, and women who do not want to conform to what a man who doesn't know them, who doesn't know their village and their culture and their way of living tells them to. You know, like, things are done in a certain way here, and whether you like it or not, like, I don't care, but this is the way that we've done it. And just because we do things differently doesn't mean that we're going against someone's beliefs or whatever, you know. And not everyone in that town was Sami. Like, most of these women were actual Norwegian women. But since they were so very close to Lapland, which is like the land of the Sami, you know, they mingled with them, and these Protestant Lutheran people didn't like it. It was just not within the order. It wasn't godly. So lots of stuff happens. And it was beautiful. I read this and I listened to the audiobook. Again, because I feel like I have an undiagnosed ADHD. And I really loved it. It was really interesting. I read it in a couple of days. I'm sure I could have read it quicker, but undiagnosed ADHD, I'm pretty sure of that. And obviously, I gave this book 5 stars. It is a beautiful book. Beautiful. It's heartbreaking. The end, the last 70 pages, you're like, because like throughout the book, you know, they're like telling stories, and this is how we live, and this is how we communicate, and these are our differences, like cultural differences, and you know, there's this girl from another city who moves in with this Scottish guy, you know, like trying to adapt to living in literally like the North Pole, where it's always cold, and so many things are different, you know, from her very privileged life that she used to live in another city in Norway. And I just felt very connected to it because I've stated this before, but my grandma was from Norway, and her family was mostly from the most northern part of Norway and Finland. And my dad has told me that we may have like Sami heritage or like ancestry. So I felt like really connected with it, I guess, because of that as well. So it was like really cool to read a story about, you know, something that could be from my people. Again, this is also historical fiction, okay? There are records of what happened over there in the 17th century. But just as with the Seal Woman's Gift, Tyrion also decided to give, you know, a voice to these women and not just let them be silenced forever by records written by men, which I thought was just amazing. And she wrote beautifully. And it was just a beautiful book. A beautiful book. Beautiful 5-star book. So, yeah. Alright guys, so that's it for today. Let me know, what books have you read so far this year that you've really liked? What are books that you haven't really liked? I have DNF'd, so I have not finished a couple of books this year because I'm also like in that state of like, if I don't like it, I'm not gonna make an effort to continue it, you know? So let me know about the books that you haven't finished this year, and what books are you looking forward to reading in the next half of 2023. I hope that you guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!